finally back. It is a new episode of Goal Horns and Fight Songs. In the place of my normal co-host Mike is a return guest who I believe was in the mid 300s of his own podcast the last time he was hanging out with us. Now he is on the cusp of breaking 400. I believe it's recorded, maybe not released quite yet, but
It
400
is out there.
episodes
It's out there. Yep.
of,
It's sent.
of two ales and hockey tales with Wally. An awesome podcast to listen to. For those who haven't, you definitely are missing out in the hockey world. Every episode is fantastic.
Well,
And
thank you, sir.
no, I lean towards the ones with extra Broncos,
I
but
understand.
but I enjoy them all. Um, so welcome back. It's been a bit. How are things in the slightly further north?
Well, they actually couldn't be better, to be honest with you. My under 13 Kincardine Canucks that I coached this season won all Ontario. Went marched through the playoffs and went 16-0. Won overtime games, had comebacks in the third. One game I got kicked out, and we were down 3-0 with 6.5 minutes left in one of the first playoff games. And after I got kicked out, those fellas went and scored 3 goals in the last 6.5 minutes, and then won her in overtime, and it was incredible. And then I was standing in the lobby with all these other parents, and then when they did it, they came off the ice, and we all had this big, huge group hug, and then we never lost another game.
Nice rallying for the coach. It's interesting how
Oh
those
man,
things
it was
happen.
cool. It was
You know,
cool.
that's those are awesome stories. But it's always interesting when those happen. You know, a goalie gets pulled and somehow a team figures out they get their shit together and they'll come back down after being down 3-4 goals, or the coach shows a little bit of fight and it rallies the boys who are down a little bit.
Well, it doesn't always go that way too, because
True.
2 years ago I coached an under 11 boys team, and they were a bit younger and maybe didn't handle the adversity as well, because I've been kicked out of 2 minor hockey games and I've never taken a penalty. They've never given me a penalty because I wasn't mean enough. I was just stating the obvious, and they didn't like it and asked me to kindly leave, and I did. And the first time it happened in under 11, the boys did not respond. It didn't go well, but when they were in under 13, these boys really fired her up when I got kicked out.
That's awesome. You made the trip down back to the old stomping grounds after quite a lengthy hiatus.
18 years, I think it was. Yeah. Um, it's weird. You go overseas to play hockey, and when you come home for the summer, it's time to be with your friends and family that you missed all season, and to try and mix in a weekend to Kalamazoo for the golf outing just seemed like a lot in a short summer, and a lot. Sometimes I'd already be back in Europe at that point. So to finally do it, and do it with 3 unbelievable guys, have a full weekend together and reconnect. It was magical stuff, man. And it was so neat to go back. And as soon as you get back, it's like you're part of the family still. And it's a big Bronco hockey family. And it's so neat to see when you get back. And to be honest with you, I wish more guys that I played with would go back. I think we all need to go back. It was great for me. The way things ended there, when we lost a lot, and then the start of my pro career didn't go that well, and I guess there wasn't that many. They weren't saying good things about me, which hurt me a lot after 4 years with them, and I never really got over that. But going back there this weekend, I'm totally over it, and I can't wait to go back again next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the things that we definitely touched on in the pod was just, you guys, as a player, you get 4 years, we get 5 years to play 4 years. And you guys kind of create your own culture aside from, the coaching staff instills what they want to, but it's really you guys, and your effect can last longer than the 4 years you're here. You kind of meet up with the incoming guys. You're as big of a part of recruiting as the coaches are sometimes. And you show what it means for Bronco hockey to pass on the things that you hope carry on even further. And so
Well, for me, I would say I didn't like the legacy that was my 4 years. I mean, I did well individually, but we never did succeed as a team, and that's what I'm there for. That's what I'm here for, because life is way better when you win. The parties at Western Michigan are way better when you win. It's just winning is way more fun, and it takes everybody to win. And it wasn't good enough those 4 years, but you know, I did the best I could. But I would say what I hope passed on from our group, and I learned it from Mike Jarmuth and the classes above me, is we're brothers. The Broncos are brothers, and we were the closest teams you could get off the ice. And I feel like I was a big part of that. That's what I tried to do, is bring the team together away from the rink. And sometimes we go to the rink and we couldn't be as together because we were battling with each other for positions, and there was a lot of competing in practice, you could say, that there were fights and all sorts of stuff. But I tell you, once we got away from the rink, we were brothers. And I hope, I'm sure it's still the same, because I saw it when I went back there, all these Bronco brothers. And it's a neat school, man. It is one of the best in college hockey, and I think that I'm very proud of where it is now. And I think some things that needed to change got changed, and now you look at what we always could have had.
Yeah, I definitely got to experience the end of the not so successful and some pretty successful teams, both as a student and now as more on just the straight fan side. But with the transfer portal and just the amount of influx in rosters, like I think the ability for a team to come together and how quickly they can do that is something that's passed down from the guys who were there before, and they instill it in the freshmen who come in, and you hope they pass it along to the guys who only spend like a year here, or things like that, and it does become a cohesive group a little bit quicker sometimes than
Well, and I would
over
say a
four
big
years.
part of that in hockey is having guys cheering for each other, like not being jealous when a guy's scoring a bunch of goals, that you're cheering for your teammates and you want them to do well, and you want to do well yourself, but you want each other to do well. And I think we always did that there, you know?
Yeah.
There'd be the oddball that we'd have to try and get in line, but they would have to, or they'd leave.
Was there anyone that you ran into during the golf outing that kind of stood out to you that you weren't necessarily expecting to see, but you were able to talk to, that you've been missing out on those opportunities to have?
Uh, I mean, you can see the jersey behind me right there. The yellow number 10 from Koha. That is Hunter's. We connected through doing the podcast, which is amazing. All the people it's brought into my life and that I know about now that I didn't. I had no idea. He told me that I was his favorite player as a kid, and he wore number 10 because of me, and asked if I was coming back to the golf tournament. And I thought, what? There's a kid in Kalamazoo that wore number 10 because of my fat ass? And I'm like, that is really neat. And I asked him if he would send me the jersey inside it, and he did. And I had it up in my shed, and I didn't know who he was. And I had the jersey, and it meant the world to me. And it's right beside a kid in Cardiff, Wales that wears number 18 because of me, because that was my number there. And those two jerseys are like the most important things to me, is that someone actually did that because of me playing. And I got to meet him at the golf tournament, and he was exactly who I wanted him to be. He was an absolute beauty.
Awesome.
So there's more than that, though, if you want me to just keep rambling.
Oh yeah, I mean, you are the guest. It is your show. I'm just here to ask questions when I can think of them, and to
Okay,
give you a
so here,
secondary platform.
well then, Steve Silver, hadn't seen him in person, did a podcast with him. Um, I tried to raise the puppies right when I was a senior, and I tried to teach them about being the best teammates they could be. But he was one of those guys that was one of the best teammates, always had a smile on his face, didn't matter where he was in the lineup, was just a great teammate. And as soon as you see each other and you don't realize you're going to see each other that day, and you just go up and give each other a huge bear hug, it's a pretty neat moment after all these years. And then like another cool one would be Luke Witkowski, that Hunter told me him and I were his two favorite players, and said it would be so cool if you could get him on the podcast. So I reached out to Wit, and he came on, and he came on from Finland, and then you actually get to meet him in person, and it's like, yeah, man, we did that. That was pretty cool, you know?
Yeah, no, it's one of the guys that was there right at the end of me being a student, so I got to see that 2012 CCHA championship team. I have a Red Wings jersey from his time at the Wings in my closet because that was like that group of dudes was like probably my
That's what
favorite.
changed the whole deal, right?
Yeah,
That's what's turned it into what it is, and I winning does that, and I say that, like, through my professional career, I won in Cardiff, Wales, and then they ended up making the Champions Hockey League. I won in Denmark with Sunderjyski. They go to the Champions Hockey League, and then there's still the top teams in their leagues, and they're still in video games, and, it's winning breeds winning, you know?
yeah. I mean, I'll still go. I mean, I go to all the Western hockey games I can, but I'll follow the. If guys make it to the K Wings, it's the only reason I'll go watch the K Wings is because there's a former Western guy on the rosters. And last year they
You're
had
just a Bronco guy.
yeah, and last year they had three. They had Jason, or no, not Jason. My bad. That is the wrong name. They had Josh Basalt, Mikey Joyal, and Ty Glover, because there were five guys all in the Vancouver organization that had played at Western. The other two, Sheldon Dries and Max Sasson, were with their AHL team. So when those
Yeah.
boys were all meeting the AHL, there were five Broncos chilling in Abbotsford, and it, Pasalt, Joyal, and Glover spent quite a bit of time in Kalamazoo, back in Kalamazoo. So I would swing over to Wings Event Center and check out a couple of the games when those boys were skating. Um,
Well, it's amazing how many Broncos are playing professional. Like, I had Ethan
so many.
Frank on the podcast, and he's a back-to-back champion in the AHL. And I like to say, like, winners win type of deal. And that he's shown, like, he's won 2 championships in his first 2 years, and he's won fastest skater in the AHL, and he's scoring goals. And it's like, well, this guy's got to get a shot next season.
That is the hope. I think he signed a 1 year or a one-way deal with the Caps for next year. So hopefully he gets more of a look than he got this year. I know a lot of guys were kind of hoping he would
He's on a
get
one-way
one.
now.
I believe so. I believe he signed a 1 year one way
Well, that would
with
be good because,
Washington.
yeah,
I mean,
that's what
another
you're looking for.
right. Another kid who deserves a shot is Brandon Bussey, who was just absolutely killing it in Providence. Uh,
A-
but then
And
again,
that's this
Boston
is
had
what's
that.
neat for me though, right? Is now I'm starting to pay attention to Broncos again because I have on guys that were teammates and I see the names when the research team gets hot. And then you see what they're doing in pro hockey, and you're so proud to be a Bronco, right? Because when I was coming up, man, the class above me, 2 classes above me with Jarmuth, Lattery, Davies, Campbell, like those guys, I thought could get real deals when they left school, but we didn't win, and it changed everything. And now to see how it's all changed, and instead of guys getting East Coast contracts out of Western Michigan, they're signing legit deals, and and they're playing in the NHL the next day sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, we had Sam Colangelo who came in the transfer portal from Northeastern, but he finished the year up in the NHL with Anaheim. So I mean, just
Well,
to
So I thought this transfer portal thing, like I talked Chris Brooks, the guy who recruited me to Western Michigan, and drove 11 hours to be at the speech for Mark Letestu, and then drove 11 hours back. I thought that was really neat. But he was telling me he's coaching Clarkson now, and he was telling me how different the game is, and that they can recruit a player for years and have them committed, and then they can just change, and there's players getting paid money now to play college hockey. I couldn't imagine
yeah,
making money playing hockey at Western Michigan because I already had the best time of my life. If they paid me to do that, I don't know, like that's living.
right. Yeah,
But it's like pro hockey now. It's not the same thing. The loyalty's gone, and I'm a loyal guy. I like being in one spot.
yeah.
So
And it's interesting. I mean, college hockey has always had kind of what seems like a closer relationship to the pro ranks than a lot of college sports. In the NFL, for the NFL, you have to have played 2 or 3 years before you're draft eligible. For the NBA, you have to spend 1 year in college now. You used to just have graduate high school, you could go. Um, Baseball, you could be drafted straight out of high school, but you can turn down being drafted and play college ball if you want. But it's college hockey where the team owns your rights, whether you play college hockey or not. And I mean, was it I can't remember his first name, but Faber, who plays for the Minnesota Wild, like he was traded while playing college hockey and was doing homework for a class in college, and his rights were traded to the Minnesota Wild while he was still at Minnesota.
Well, yeah, that's just the rights though, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the next step. Is you the NCAA is totally different. I remember sitting at Western Michigan because from a guy from Elmira, Ontario, that's 5'8", I never ever thought I was going to Western Michigan to talk to NHL teams. I thought I was going there to be a good college hockey player, and then when all of a sudden, um, I was sitting in a class, one of the night classes, the 6 to 9ers,
Ugh.
and all of a sudden my phone lights up and it says the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. And I was like, what? And I'm sitting in class and I just grabbed the phone and ran out the door. But it was weird, man. The first time you get one of those calls when you never thought you ever would, it's like, what?
Yeah. But it just seems like with the introduction of the portal, a guy could be in talks with that team, or there's some.
When they're trying to tell them what to do, when they're
Yes.
saying maybe you're not getting the right shot here and maybe you would get more ice time here, and I know this coach.
Or there's some coaches who might be able to better use your talents here or there. Like I'm sure that happens and it goes on, and there's talkings, whether it's supposed to or whether it's out in the open. Like everybody knows it happens. Like guys are known, one, that they're entering the transfer portal, two, what school they've already decided they're going to before their name's ever actually officially in the portal. Like these things are known if you know the right people and can have the right conversations. And there's reporters who will report on it before it ever happens, and you're like, well, who do you know?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a way messier game than just coaching hockey nowadays. Um, I liked that they used to recruit their players and the people they were bringing in they had for 4 years. And if you wanted to redshirt somewhere and transfer, you're gonna have to sit out a year. And I thought it put more accountability on the recruiting. It put more accountability on the people you bring in, because you can't just change them in and out. And there was more loyalty, which is what I'm all about.
Yeah, and I think that loyalty goes both ways too. Like, there seems to be a misconception that it's always, now that a player can put themselves into the portal, like they don't have to ask permission to be transferred or whatever. There's this misconception that it's always on the player who's doing it type thing, and I've fallen into that trap too, where I've kind of thought like, oh, why is that player jumping in the portal? But there's
But
some
the real
conversations.
realistic though, when I played, if there was a portal, every year I can think of 5 or 6 guys that would want to jump into it.
Oh yeah. But like I think like, well, there was still like the ability to transfer, but you had to ask like your head coach, and then you had to ask like some other person in the university, and then you had to ask like some other person or something. And then you had to sit out a year uh at the new, and you couldn't transfer like within the same conference or the same division or something like that. Like there was all these extra rules that they've kind of gotten away from recently with the portal, and now there's even the opportunity to transfer more than once.
Well, everybody's just trying to find the loopholes in the game, right? Everybody's just trying to win. I mean,
Mm.
I do the same thing coaching minor hockey. Everybody has these hockey schools and it's all the same stuff. And what I tried to bring my team together, I found some ice somewhere that I can go out with a truckload of my boys and go out for an hour, and it doesn't cost me much. And then we go for like a breakfast on the way home. And then all of a sudden, 5 kids on my team just had an hour just having fun playing hockey. And that's my loophole in the game right now because I don't think any other coaches in Ontario are doing it.
Right. uh so you mentioned that you want to bring your team down still.
Nah,
Is that
I
still?
well, I was planning it all out, figuring out the weekends and then our tournaments. And then I looked into the price of a bus to take down, what the hotels would cost, all of it combined. It would mean way more to me than to some of the parents that maybe are just trying to play minor hockey and they don't need the big expenses. And looking at all the numbers, I realized that I can't make people do this. I can't ask them to do this. So it won't work out this season, but I sure want to.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's definitely like, I love going to Western games. They're my favorite hockey games, and
And
I've
I honestly, I think it would change these kids. I think it would change what they think of what's possible and what's out there because the first Western Michigan game I saw, I was like, "Oh, baby, like, I have to come here, and this is my goal." But I guess they were recruiting me, so we both were into it.
Yeah. But to what degree is NCAA hockey like thought of and a possibility for the average Canadian player? Like, do they grow up thinking like, "Oh, I'm gonna go down to the states and play NCAA"? Or are they still in that I want to play in the college juniors and go that route?
Most kids in Ontario don't like they don't follow the NCAA much, so
Right.
they're shooting for the OHL. They're shooting to make the teams they watch with their own eyes. It's the OHL, which is a decent option. But the other thing with that is Americans have gotten way better at hockey from when I came up. I mean, they don't need as many Canadians on the in the NCAA. Like it's not even close to compared when I played when well over half a team's going to be Canadians. It's not the same anymore.
Yeah.
So that's I would say they shoot for the OHL, but if I could tell them what they should want, I would want to go to the NCAA. I've seen both. I got to live NCAA. It's not even close what's more fun. Western Michigan is a million times more fun than playing in the OHL. A million times.
Yeah. So I think like that's kind of what I like about your idea of wanting to get them to see like what's open to them is because that's not even like on their radar potentially. Even having you as their coach, like that still may not be sinking in. Like there's this other path here that
Well,
we
so like
could
I
go
I
to.
don't tell them like what I've done. I just am the guy that works in town and goes and unless they find out about the podcast and then they start listening and following along, I really don't show them what I've done or tell them. So when they find out I played at Western Michigan, they're like, "Oh, like what?" I'm like, "Well, we play University of Michigan." And I'm like, "You shirt you're wearing right now? I hate it."
Hey, they're
And
back on the schedule this year, right after Thanksgiving.
I know. I looked at the schedule and I was trying to figure out the boys' weekends, and I was like, "Whoa, that Denver weekend's my son's birthday." And I was like, "Oh, this one would work, and this one would work." And then when I realized it wasn't going to work, I was sad.
Yeah, I mean maybe it's still just a small trip with the family coming back
Well,
and experiencing a game.
and that's what I should figure out is what game would work. But it's a drive, but
Oh
it's
yeah,
a lot more fun when you're going back to a golf tournament with Mike Jarvis and Paul Davies and you meet in Grand Bend, Ontario. And that's what's cool about what Chris Brooks did at our time is he recruited a lot of small town Ontario boys. So now we all get to live around each other and I still run into Mike Jarmuth at arenas around here. He just stopped by my cottage last week because he was coming to my town for his son's baseball game. And it's so neat that we're back connected. And it was from starting the podcast that I got reconnected with all these people.
yeah, dude, that's awesome. I mean, I follow a lot of the guys when they graduated, and like especially the teams that I was a student for. And every summer or even throughout the year, like you see guys from that 2012 team, they're always in each other's like Instagram stories, and they're always hanging out and like on the lakes on the east side of the state. Like they've all somehow managed to, even if they're playing like what Kowski you were talking about. You know, he played in Europe this year, but he's back over in Michigan hanging out with the same dudes he played college hockey with every weekend. It seems like.
Honestly, what those boys built and that brotherhood that they all live near each other, they all still get together during the week. It's like I do think that's the difference between winning and losing. I think if our teams were winning, like if we were doing it when I was there, I think a lot of people would have had a hard time leaving the area. Instead it's the opposite. Instead, I can't hardly get any of my boys to come back with me. I'm gonna recruit them and we're going back. But it's amazing the difference in winning and losing because I think that's how I started a podcast was from winning in a few different countries and why so many people are listening is because I have brothers for life because we won together in all these places. But then my Broncos are also my brothers for life. We just didn't win together. But
Yeah,
those guys, what they've built, all living by lakes and have boats and like families and are raising them all together. I think it's the neatest thing ever. And they won a championship together. That's cool stuff.
yeah. And I mean the teams we've had recently, like 3 straight years of going to the NCAA tournament. You know, we go down, and the most recent regional was in um, outside of St. Louis. I ran into your teammate Jeff Lavecchio down there. Made the 6 hour drive. To
I sent him the photo that you sent me, and he goes, "Dude, that guy asked me to take a photo. Who is that?" And I'm like, "That's the painted Bronco."
yeah, no, I saw him talking to a couple people, and he was just chatting with everybody, and I was like, oh, that's Jeff. That's Wally's teammate. You know, I've seen him around. He follows me on something, or did at one point on something. So, um,
He used to love he was my college roommate or the road roommate because he would be in the dorms. But when we would go to games on the road, they'd put him with me to teach me about life. And he used to love my swan dives into the bed at night.
but no, he was a good dude. But yeah, no, I asked him for the picture just to send to you to be like, hey, I ran into your
No,
boy down
it's
here.
cool. Yeah, it's
Um,
cool.
Man, there was dude. There was a quite few people who made that haul down. I mean, that was probably one of the closest regionals we've played in. We had a really good chance of winning the game. It came down to a couple of mistakes at the end of the game, up 2 goals and a bad bounce in overtime. But in that game the whole time, and you could just see like the boys were just absolutely broken and kind of knew who was and wasn't coming back even in that moment. Just the way they were on the ice and their body language, like with that last year of COVID year coming. But you're like, oh, he's not coming back. He's done. You could tell on his face that like
Honestly,
he wanted this year more than normal.
I don't know if you can say it like that because I think winning and losing means more to some people than others. Um, and I think it's true though, if you're a freshman and you know you're coming back and you don't really get it yet, you only get so many chances to win. It's like we when I first got there, they kept saying, "Oh, when this class is seniors, we've been waiting for this." And it's like, "Well, why don't aren't we doing it now?" Because
Yeah.
then we didn't do it when they were seniors, and then all of a sudden they're gone, and we never did it.
I mean, I think a couple of the guys that had their minds made up before that moment, but they had or like in their mind, they're like, okay, no matter how this game goes, like we're gone. But because it didn't go a specific way, I think it felt different to those guys who didn't have who knew they weren't coming back already. And they're like, ah, shit. The last
Oh,
year, and to throw that L up on the end of the season when you
well,
had it, you thought you had a team who could go.
it's totally the opposite. Winning and losing is totally the opposite. It's
Yeah,
like the same as when my under. It's in every league. It's like in under 13 boys when the other team were beating us in the third period of the final game. And then we scored 2 goals in the last 6.5 minutes and we won and they lost. And our boys have that forever. We had a parade in our hometown. We did the whole deal. We've had a reunion, a big pool party. We've done it all, and it's because they won that game. And those other kids, and I felt horrible for them because they gave it their all and they gave us everything they had, but they came out to the lobby and their parents and all the boys were crying and it killed them. And it was because they gave everything they had.
yeah.
And when you actually give everything you have, I think you're way more sad when you lose. Because if you see the picture of me after my senior night at Western Michigan when we had lost again, I'm the saddest I've ever been.
No, for sure. I totally get it. Like, I mean, I haven't played team sports in forever, but I got into individual sports, and it was one of those things where every time I got second place, I absolutely hated second place. Uh, didn't mind third place for whatever reason. And I was having this conversation with a buddy with my buddy Trevor, who is this strapping young lad right here, Trevor. Um, but like I hated second place. If you gave me a silver medal, I was down the whole rest of the day. I was like, I didn't win a silver medal. I lost, and you gave me silver. I won. I either won gold or I won bronze.
Well, and that's what I think people don't get about hockey players, especially some fans that maybe say, well, why didn't we try harder? Why didn't we do this? It's like when you lose, say, like you're playing Ohio State at home and you lose Friday, Saturday, and your whole week is totally different. It sucks walking around campus. It sucks going to practice. It sucks going to class. It sucks doing everything. But then if you win both of those games, you have a wicked awesome party and the funnest time ever because Western Michigan is the funnest school ever. And then practices are light and fun. You walk around campus with a little more pep in your step because you guys were the team that just beat Ohio State twice, right? And it changes your whole week. And the guys know that and they want to win, you know?
Yeah. I wonder if that feeling is the same now with the amount of like online classes. If they're still getting like that juice, like I mean, they're their classes are
Is
probably
there as many people running and walking around campus as there used to be? Because that
that's
used to be a great part of people watching around there.
right. That's what I'm wondering. Like I mean, I've been out of Western for 10 years now, 11 years now, so I
Right.
don't hang out. Well, I go, I work at Waldo's on Thursday, and it's still packed. But
I
that
just
and
got to drive through all that, man, and the
I was gonna
memories
say
it
like,
brought back. It's like I saw the football stadium and I nearly threw up. It was disgusting because
but
I ran those stairs so many flipping times, dude, and carried people on my back up the stairs and all that stuff. And I saw that football stadium and there was not, I didn't remember a good memory from there.
I think if I dropped you off at the flagpoles, I don't know if you'd be able to find your way on campus anymore.
I saw where the Burnhams got torn down, and that was sad, man. What a breeding ground for the the boys back in the day.
The Burnhams are gone. That's all rebuilt up. The
That
Bernhard Center is
of
in the middle of.
the Burnhams were all athletes
Yep.
that had similar schedules. They were all busy. They were all in shape, and I just thought it was so funny that they send all these people away from mom and dad and put them in these dorms, and then there's just a swinging door between the boys and the girls.
Yeah. Uh, but they're gone. The Bernhard Center is in the middle of being torn down. They have the new student building built where McCracken was. Um,
See, I don't know what McCracken was, but Bernhard, was that the one with the good pizza, like for cafeteria food?
that was the
Is that where the bookstore was?
yes. Yep.
Do you know what's cool about me going to Western Michigan and how everything's going? You know who's going to come on my podcast is the coach, Pat Furschweiler.
He was supposed to be on here a while ago and kind of ghosted me, so I'm a little bit sad,
Oh
but I'm
my
glad that you got him.
gosh. Well, let's hope he doesn't ghost me then,
Uh,
you know?
well, hey,
But
listen, I'm
so
still small potatoes and
so when I went to
useful.
Germany in my career turnaround, for a little bit, um, my nickname was Waldo. And then I went to Western Michigan and then my favorite part was Waldo's. I think it's neat.
Yeah, it's such a
It's
it's such
like
a
I
good spot.
was meant to go to Western Michigan, you know?
Right. Uh, let's see what else is going. They're tearing down the valleys here not too long from now. They got
Is
that
that right?
they got that huge cafeteria out there by Valley 3. They're supposed to be redoing. I think they're going to be rebuilding them, but they're
You're
getting rid of
really
those.
reminding me about all this stuff, man. I forgot. Like we weren't in the campus area very long, you know.
Yeah.
We were yeah,
Well,
it was a full weekend when we went there.
I spent 6 years in Valley 3 and hiked my ass all the way across campus to go to Boston games. It got to the point where I was like, I'm gonna.
That's a long walk.
Oh, you're telling me. So on Friday, what I would do though is I would wait for the campus bus to come around, the one that only goes around the outside of campus, and I'd hop on that sucker outside Valley 3, and I would get off outside of Miller, and all I had to do was walk across the Miller parking lot and across the bridge. And I was at the game. I'd had to walk all
Oh,
the way home, but you know,
oh yeah.
saving the legs a little bit. Of
That's a
course,
full walk though.
we we were also standing out
Dedicated
there.
fan.
Dude, we were standing out there like
When did you
3:30.
start painting yourself then?
2009 is when I started
Oh,
painting my face.
okay. So you weren't painted when I was around. Were you around when I was around or no?
We just missed each other. I was a freshman in the fall of '07, so I got I think 1 year of with Jeff, and I got 2 years with Chris Frank, who was
Uh,
just an absolute animal when I was there, and
he
an instant fan
yes, he sure
favorite.
was. Oh yeah. Man, when he came in his freshman year and started killing guys, and the whole crowd was cheering Frank the Tank. It would, and the movie Old School just came out, and it was like the stars aligned that this guy is a superstar here.
Yeah, he was still wrecking bodies
Oh man,
when I was there.
yeah. I had to play against him in the UK. It wasn't very fun. You had to know he was on the ice, you know.
One of those guys were all right. Where's he at? Am I good to go, or am I gonna have to check
I played a
shoulders?
lot of shifts against him actually. I don't know why that was, but they seemed to have him out there a lot against me. And I was like, this is just like the practices we used to have. There were some times where the coach would say, Frank, you're going, somebody else would be ready to go against me. Be like, nope, Frank, you're going against them one-on-one full ice. and he would just let it play out for like a minute and a half, and he'd be yelling at Frank to kill me and tell me I'm not ready for pro and all this stuff. And man, it would be some heated battles because Frank would have to pretend like he did actually want to kill me, but he didn't actually want to kill me because he wanted me to play in the games. It was a bizarre situation.
Yeah, it seems like it. Uh, yeah. So I mean, now that you've made it back, how much pressure are you putting on the rest of the boys to get them back for next year, or even like maybe a boys' weekend, get
Well,
the
I
team
talked,
to come
I
together
talked
and
to,
go to a game.
I talked to Stretch today, and he told me he'd come back. That's Andrew Dwyer, and if we get Stretch back, and then we get Yancey and Daryl back, and then all of a sudden, I think we were the four that really brought the team together. We were the ones that hosted things. We were the ones that um, tried to make the boys have fun. Sometimes when it wasn't that fun at the rink, and I think it could just snowball like wild that they won't have enough tea times for the boys coming back. That's my plan.
It seems to start that way. And do you plan on catching more, like following the team a little bit more this year, kind of keeping up with the schedule, seeing how they do, what they're doing?
A lot. No, I mean, like doing the podcast and doing 400 episodes. It can be a lot when you start caring about so many people. Um, that you have a lot to try to follow because you care about your friends.
Right.
So I don't always pay attention, but I know if they're doing well or not. I wouldn't say I'd look at every game and score and all that stuff, but I really wish I would have been able to bring the boys there this year, minor 13 team. I think it'd be the neatest experience ever. I loved coming back. You know, I think it just reminded me how much I loved Western Michigan and how perfect of a fit it was for me for those 4 years. And seeing the brotherhood they got around there still, it was really neat to see.
Did you go to the alumni game?
I did not. We played a practice round with my foursome the first day when we hadn't really seen each other yet. We met at a golf course and played around and had a lot of fun, and then played for dinner. And my team lost, me and Jeremy. And we were supposed to pay for dinner, and we get there, and Jeremy will not let me pay. And I said, "Man, I lost with you." And he says, "Nope, I got you, Wally." But what was interesting was we went back to the Burdicks, which was where like we used to go for pregame meals when we first started there, and it looks totally different. I was hard to recognize. And there was a Comic Con event going on, and man, there's some interesting stuff going on around that place.
Nice.
Fun night though.
Yeah, I mean, Burdick's is gonna be, if you're at the one downtown in the Radisson, that's gonna be right around where the new arena's going.
Is that where it's going? That is so different than being on campus, man. I don't know if that's the right play, but I'm just speaking the truth because I have a hard time speaking the opposite.
I mean, that's kind of my feelings on it too.
I think
Um,
it changes the whole scene if you're going down there for a game because it is a different vibe down there than being on campus. Being on campus is the school spirit, the you can walk from the valleys, which is the furthest part away, and everybody can go to that game if you gosh darn want to. And some people just aren't going to be willing to go all the way downtown and have to get all the way back.
yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it too. Is like I think it's gonna the most diminished we're gonna see is on the student section,
And
which sucks.
that's what makes Western Michigan Western Michigan. That's what the Lawson Lunatics is what makes it the it's the coolest school ever. And I mean, they make the games.
Yeah, so
You'd have a game on Thanksgiving weekend or something, and they're not there, and you're like, I don't want to play today. I want to wait until they're here again. This doesn't make sense to play here without them here.
yeah, I mean, I've been in some of those smaller crowds. Like I would stay back on Thanksgiving if I knew that there was a hockey game that weekend, just to go and be amongst the like 12 students who were there. but I'm also not your typical college hockey fan. If you hadn't realized or followed me anywhere, so
Well, and I'm not the typical hockey player, I guess, either, right? Because,
yeah,
anyways,
yeah. No, I made sure my co-host came in and we drove the 9 hours down to Nashville, Tennessee on Thanksgiving Day to watch Western play in what ended up being
that's
a practice
aggressive.
arena.
That's an
Because
aggressive move. But you got to go to Nashville.
yeah, it was pretty fun. You know, we were expecting to. So we had it set up. I was gonna go to uh, a ECHL game because the K Wings played the day before Thanksgiving. They had their lavender ice game because they like painting their ice and screwing with their goalies for whatever reason. Uh, then we were gonna drive down on Thanksgiving Day. The day after in the morning, it was supposed to be the Preds versus the Avs, but a water main broke, flooding the building. So they postponed that game. They moved the Western Northeastern game to one of the uh,
Practice arenas.
practice arenas. So it was smaller than Ferris State's arena. And then on the way back, we stopped in Chicago and watched the Chicago Wolves play the Texas Stars in the AHL. But we were going to hit all the
So
different
you are
levels.
just so I thought you were just a Bronco fan, but you are just a bit of a hockey fan, or you just chasing Broncos around?
Well, that was because it was on the way. And I mean, really, if
Right.
you're in Nashville and there's a pro game, why not go? But for the most part, it's the Red Wings and the Broncos. But
Yeah.
if there's a hockey game and I'm not doing anything else, I
Well,
will go
that
to a
makes
hockey game.
sense being from Michigan. I'm glad you're a Bronco fan. The thing that's still like it's weird, right? You go to all those clothing stores all over Michigan. You could even be in Kalamazoo, and there's more Michigan and Michigan State stuff. And then if I go to a store now in Michigan and I see anything Bronco, I'm going to want to buy it because I went back to that golf tournament and I got to remember who I was and where I came from. And I really truly think all those guys, whether they're listening to us or not today, they all need to come back, and I am going to bring them back just like I love doing with teams, just like I've done with my podcasts and bringing all my friends back together. And I hear they're texting and seeing each other and bringing it up and saying, you went there, you talked to him. And like, it's bringing the boys back together. And that is what I love about hockey. And I want to do it with the Broncos.
Yeah, I think it needs to be done.
It
There's
does need to be done.
especially before before it's too late and campus is 100% different than what it was, or there's not even a Lawson to go visit. I mean, that seems to be the way of things.
Yeah. You lagged on me there for a sec, but yeah, I totally agree, man. They need to go back and we all need to go back. And it was great for me. That trip was awesome for me. And then I told them I was on a tryout card because, I haven't been there 4th other years. And I said, I'm going to play really hard this week and I'm going to show you guys I still got it. I can still play hard. And I played hard all weekend. And on the way back, they asked me if I was in their group again next season. And, I'm like, I made the team. So now I can get the rest of my boys back and say, get a foursome and be here with us. And let's do this together.
Yeah,
Like it always was.
exactly. Now that you started it, why is it so crooked? My head is crooked. Whatever. But those are the things. Like I think there's definitely. I'm glad that you got the opportunity to come back because that was a main thing that we talked about. Was just like you'd seen kind of what the boys were doing and you missed that opportunity to do it yourself. But to me, like it's such a big part. Like again, going back to the transfer portal, like a lot of guys talk about it. Like college hockey might be the only time they're on the same team for 4 years, or was the only time they were on the same team for 4 years
It's
before.
very, very true. I was again in Bietigheim, Germany, but it was not the same. It wasn't. There was more turnover every year. It wasn't like you're here for all 4 years with me. We're the same class. We're brothers. We're going to do everything together. And the next guys that come up, they're right there with you. And then you get your puppies when you're a senior and you're like, oh, I'm going to show you what it's all about. I'm going to teach you everything I've learned here because I want you to know everything.
Yeah, and like Trevor's taught me that like the ECHL, those guys are only if they're signed by the straight ECHL team, that's a 1 year deal. Like there is no multi-year extensions. Like everyone's kind of cut at the end of the year, and you get a sense
Dude,
of like they
dude,
might want you back the next year, or
my
hey, we're done
whole
with you.
My whole career was 1-year contracts. My
Yeah.
whole career, 10 years,
So
1-year deals in everywhere.
right. So
There's not many people signing multi-year deals unless you're good, which is what they're getting now.
I mean, like, the entry level deal is that first 3-year deal that guys sign if they're the right guys or whatever, or you might sign like a 2-year deal in the AHL or something
Y
of that if you get to that level. But it was really like there's a whole league or there's multiple leagues out there that it's a 1-year deal. So it just goes back to that point of like college might be the only team or the only time where you're with a group of, whatever your class size
Where
is.
you're a
Maybe it's
team.
five guys in a class that you're with for, multiple years, like 4 years if you're able to do it or you don't leave early or whatever.
So, and I do think one of the hardest things I had was turning pro in my whole career, was learning what hockey's actually about, because I had grown up in a small town. You're a team with your buddies from home, like what my son's doing with his buddies. You're a team, and you're a lot of the same kids, but you're all part of the same community. You see each other around town. You all have each other's backs all the time, and then you might go AAA, and then they become your team, and then you go to West. Then I play for my hometown. I play with all the friends I've been growing up with, and then we sprinkle in some new guys, and we win it all. And hockey's the funnest time ever. And then you go to Western Michigan, and you're a team, like you're a team, and it was that way as soon as I got there. The seniors took care of us. We went on a team trip. They showed us that we are brothers and we are a team. And then we were still doing the senior trips when we ended. And we were like, well, we got to make this better than what they did for us. And that's how it snowballs and how you keep that brotherhood was. But then I go to pro and I'm on a tryout, and then you'd go out for warm up, and then you come off and realize you're not playing because the jersey's not in your stall. And then there's guys that are, because you're a college kid coming at the end of the season, they think you're taking their ice time, and it was not a team dynamic in the AHL like I knew and I had grown up with, and I struggled with it big time because I'm like, I can tell this guy doesn't have my back, and I don't know how to play hockey this way. But then you realize what it's like, and I play a year in North America, and I'm like, this really isn't for me. And then I go to Germany, and in Landshut, Germany, these guys were a team. They had all grown, a lot of them had grown up in Landshut, Germany, and we were a team, and everybody was signed for 1 year, but nobody was going to go anywhere. There weren't trades. These are the guys. And then all of a sudden, hockey made sense to me again. And I'm like, this is what I want to do. And then I stayed there because it was like that. And then I went to Bietigheim, and it's a small town, and there's some Bietigheim guys on the team, but you know everybody, you see everybody around town, and it's a small town vibe, and that's what I like in life is, you know, being accountable and saying hi to people and waving to each other. But I rambled there, eh?
No, it's all good. Uh, I guess like the way sports are going, and I think I asked Trevor this one time too, is like, everyone's moving around so much that it seems like, and you look at social media, everyone's like, hey, nice job at this game and this game or whatever. Like, are rivalries really just left to the fans anymore? Like, do you guys still get like amped up if,
Well,
back?
for you're asking the wrong guy for me, because where I was, it was I'm right into whatever rivalry is going on, right? So as a player, it's like, well, if these are the rivals, these are the rivals. But I think it means a lot more to the guys that have been in the battle before. And I would say in the NHL, like the Stars sign their huge 7, 8, 10-year deals, and they're there. They're not going anywhere. But all those other pieces get moved around because they are expendable and there's lots of them. And it's a weird landscape that way just because of the salary cap and how they pay some guys so much. And then I mean, it'd be hard to build a team as a GM if you walk into a place and things aren't right. And then you only have your few years because I don't know. To me, I would want depth. I would want a full team. I mean, I've been on teams with depth and you win, and the teams without depth don't win.
Yeah. But I
Does
just
that
meant
make
like,
sense?
no, it makes
I went off
sense
topic again on you.
a little bit. but I just meant like, you know, for the sake of this conversation, not that they were during your time, but the current rival, most common rival for Western Michigan is Miami. They both came from the CCHA. It's been a rather lopsided rivalry recently, with Western Michigan winning a good majority. Don't pop up on me and make noises that I don't need in people's earballs. But the last 3 years, we've had a kid transfer up from Miami to Western. And but to the student section, like, that's still the big rivalry. Like, we don't want to lose to those guys, and every one of those games means a little bit more, maybe to the student section, or to the fans who've followed along them the longest. And it just seems like maybe rivalries aren't what they were. Also, I grew up a Red Wings fan. Like, I grew up in that time period where it was Detroit versus the Avs. Like, if you wear Avs stuff, like, nobody liked you, nobody wanted to see the Avs, nobody wanted any of the Avs players to come to Detroit, and whether it was a trade or at the end of the season, or the guy's a free agent, we're like, don't sign those guys. Anybody but those guys.
Well, yeah, now that's the pure hatred that like those playoffs brought. But I mean, to answer your question is, I think for that player that did transfer to Miami, and I find it very weird that they're your big rival now, because that's so different from when I played. And I think when you restructure leagues, um, it changes everything. It changes those deep down rivalries. The ones we had, like with Ferris State, and even Michigan State. I mean, we felt like rivals because we were the underdogs every time. And it's like, if we beat you, ha ha. And that's was the feeling back then. And I think it's cool that they expect to beat them now. Um, that's what's neat about Western Michigan now, is they expect to beat those teams. And when I played there, that was not the expectation, and I think you have to expect to win, um, to actually do it, because you have to believe in yourself to do things, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And
anyways,
no, that was definitely part of the restructuring, because they did this whole travel partner thing type thing, and it was basically either the closest school or the one that you had a strong history with. So again, Western Michigan and Miami, they had really, at the end of the CCHA, they were competing for against each other at the end of the year. Like, 2011, when Western made it to the conference finals but lost, we lost to Miami. The next year, we beat Miami in the semifinals, play Michigan in the finals, and beat them to actually win the championship.
well, I think the restructuring changes the rivalries, right? Because now Denver's the team, and it's like, well, Western's got to think that that's the rival because they are the best team. I mean, I know it's weird for me to think of how they ever restructured that, because to me, it's like minor hockey around here. Way back when, even when I was a kid, they made this alliance and this OMHA, and they're two different things, and they do their own things. But it's like the the towns that are closest to us, where I am right now, don't play each other, and they're in separate leagues. So then I have to drive all the hell over Ontario because you guys couldn't get along back in the 90s. And it's like, that makes no sense. Everybody be on the same team, and everybody make this right for the parents and the kids. And it makes no sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's
But
similar to that.
it's like that league. It's like, so Michigan State, and like the CCHA, man, that was a fantastic league. And when that was breaking up, I was like, man, I feel so separated from Western Michigan now, because now they're calling it a different league and they're playing different teams. And I'm like, man, I feel so disconnected from that school. And that's what was cool about going back last couple weekends ago.
Yeah. Well, that was the Big Ten thing. Because as we've come to learn through other conversations, that once Penn State started their hockey program and they got to Division 1, the Big Ten had an agreement years before that if there were ever 6 Big Ten hockey teams, they had to form a Big Ten hockey conference. So the Big Ten screws everything up, and rips apart the CCHA, the WCHA, and we end up with this big mess for a couple of years. Now you've got no WCHA, you got the CCHA back, and you got the NCHC, which has been the premier conference in college hockey for since pretty much its inception 12 years ago. Uh, but I mean, Western knows when Denver and North Dakota come to town. Those are big games. But they don't necessarily feel like rivalry
The
games.
Because they're not from Michigan.
Yeah, because they're not a team that we play 4 times a year every year, or that,
But
we
are just right down the road,
right, yeah.
like it's the same as the Grey Bruce Highlanders don't play the Huron Perth Lakers right here when we're in rural Ontario, and we're trying to get kids from a huge area to play on one team, and then we can't play the next door neighbors. Come on.
No, I get it. Like, I definitely miss the CCHA days where, like, every weekend it was almost a home and home, and you're debating on, like, I just jump in the car for the couple-hour car trip. Now I gotta, like, plan out years in advance, like, all right, we're in Denver this
It's
weekend.
so
Let
true, man. You
let
could
me
just drive to East Lansing, or you could just drive to Ann Arbor, and you're
Yeah,
there and you're at the game.
yeah. I can drive up to Ferris. It's only like an hour and a half away, if that. I
Yeah.
can, you know,
It's
jump in the
totally
car and go to
different,
Ann
and
Arbor.
honestly, when I was looking at their schedule and when I was trying to figure it out for my boys this year, and I was looking at their schedule, I'm like, holy shit, they really don't play that many games, and there really isn't that many weekends of home games in the season. It's like, holy moly, like that's not much time to be at the rink and enjoy it all.
Yeah, that too. I mean, like, it was definitely in the CCHA. The worst one you had was Alaska.
Mm.
That was the
That
one
was a
real
tough
trip.
one.
That was the
And you
one
know
real
what was
trip.
weird about that was them and Anchorage were in the same division.
Yeah, Fairbanks was with us in the CCHA, and Anchorage was in the WCHA, I think.
Yeah, that's right. But I know they still played each other and had their little tournament, so I'm sure it still made sense because you can't make everybody go to two teams in Alaska. What a trip that was.
Yeah, and now they're both independents. Um, but yeah, it's definitely been a different thing. Like, I've been able to get to some of the away schools, but it's not as easy as it was. Like, I'm hoping to go to the Michigan game this year, and I was trying to figure out, like, what would be a cool away game to go to. They have one game at Boston. I think they play BC, like October 26th or something. It's a Saturday. It's like, do I want to go to Boston for one hockey game? Like, it's not even a full weekend.
Yeah, it's honestly, I would say it's kind of sad to try and be a really good fan of the Broncos and make all the games. And to be honest, what I think's even sadder is for the parents, because when I was a Bronco, being in Elmira, my parents made it to nearly every game. They didn't go to Alaska, but I mean, parents drove to Nebraska, Omaha. They drove to Ohio State. They drove to Michigan State, Michigan. They dr- they would be there for us. And when you first leave home and your parents want to be there and you want them to be there. And now of these parents to be at the games for the Broncos is way too far away and way too much money.
Ethan Frank's parents. I met Ethan's parents in Colorado his freshman year, because my wife and I went out to Colorado to watch them play, like, the final weekend at Colorado College before they went back to campus. But yeah, his parents, they're from Omaha, or right outside. Or they live right outside Omaha, and, like, they would go to, if Western's playing at Omaha, it's right there. So the pod was, like, great for them because they were there, but they still couldn't even really see Ethan during that season because that was the no fan season. But they would make trips up here, like, every other weekend or once a month, whatever it was. Like, those dudes traveled, and they'll like, it was
Well,
amazing to
parent
watch them get there, and, like, to kind of know who they were and say hey, but and
well,
realize
and
how
that's
often they
what's
were there.
cool about figuring out that I call them shed guys, the guys that come on the podcast, but that his parents did that for him because when we were from Ontario and at Western Michigan, it was about a 5.5, 6 hour drive for the parents. But my parents, Yancey's parents, and Daryl Moore's parents, they were there every weekend. And if we were playing at home, they were there and they were at our apartment at all the parties. Um, when all the boys would come over, all the college people, my parents hung right in there till the end of the night with all their best friends. And our parents were best friends with my best friends, and it was a family.
I think
So
that's, again, I think that plays into what we've been kind of talking about the whole time. Like college hockey is such a different animal. You're there for years. Parents can build relationships with other parents because their kids have played together for 4 years. Like it's not like
Well,
you,
then they were all coming from Ontario, and they were all they still have reunions. Our parents still have reunions. They just had one at the Moores house, and they all got together and they got cowboy hats on, and it was from going to Western Michigan.
see, the parents seem to be tighter knit than you guys are. Yeah.
Well, they get to see each other. We're living a busier life now, and not just trying to get the like our kids are a bit younger and they're like retired and like do what they want.
Yeah. But like those things seem to, I think, still kind of carry over today. Like I know that there's definitely some parent group chats that take place, and they get together as much as almost the players do in some regards. And like you said, they're still getting together. So I hope that carries on, and it all stems from like this ability to be kind of settled down for a minute in one spot playing hockey.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. And but it also takes the people to make that happen. It took them wanting to be there and driving those kilometers, right? Like
Yeah.
not every parent's going to do that.
No, for sure. I mean, there's I grew up playing sports where like there were drop off kids. Everybody knew who the drop off kids were. Like,
Yeah.
I
Oh yeah.
it's Carl's 5 minutes late. I bet he's a drop off today. And the mom's like kicking him out of the car as she's trying to
Yeah.
just get
Everybody does
out to
it differently.
practice. Yeah. And then there's other parents who, there's the fence hanging parents who would watch all the practices. Or are the board parents leaning on the boards, watching, seeing what's going on. There's the wannabe coach parents who drive the kids
Yeah.
as drive the kids as nuts as they do the coaching staff.
And talk to the kids about everything that the coaches are doing wrong.
Yeah.
It was good I didn't have any. I don't think I had any of those this year because the parents really seemed to be involved, and I really think that's how you win though, is having parents that are on your side. The culture you create is that it's fun, it's a happy place. It's you know, losing does suck, and if you don't have the tools, you don't have the tools. But if everybody's having fun and enjoying being there, I think you can play hockey way better. And I lived that through my hockey career. I had a lot of ups and downs. Um, Even mid-season, you could turn a season around or a season could go for shit. And I truly thought it was about how happy I was in life.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? Feel good, play good, pay good, whatever.
Feel good, play good. Or look good, feel
Feel
good,
good.
play good.
Yeah.
Sorry, I haven't played in a while. I've been out for like 10 years. And you know what warms my heart is I've been out of the game for like 10 years and I'm still getting asked to do another guy's podcast.
I would say you might be just as involved, if not more involved now than you were at certain points in your career.
Dude, I love hockey more than I ever have. That's actually not true. When I was like a Sugar King in my hometown and we're winning the whole deal, when I was growing up with the kids with my buddies, my brothers for life, and we win all Ontario's. I mean, those were as fun as life gets, and I think it was a lot of times was every time I won was like as fun as life gets. But um, when your career doesn't go the way you want, when it all ends from a knee injury, and you got two little kids, you have no idea what to do with the next step in life. You can resent the game where it put you when you don't have as much money in your account as you were planning on having, and you have two little kids and no knee. Um, it can really mess with you for a long time. And then until I got my bed made in the real world and I moved to a new town, I had a difficult time because I didn't know anybody and I need my people around. It was it was starting the podcast, but it was also coaching kids and being on a team again. And I realized I just need a team in my life. And I didn't have one for years. And it was a very difficult time. But then now that I have teams again, and it's like I have an under 13 team again next year, and I have to figure out how to help them win because I know what it does for the rest of their lives. And I will get up at 5 in the morning and go pick up a truckload of kids and go take them to skate because I want to do that for them.
Like, yeah. Uh, you have established some traditions outside of hockey that I think more people should know about. You sponsor a captain of a English team, an English league team. I don't
So
know how many teams you have throwing candy on ice after games, but that number has increased drastically as I've both listened to your podcast and since your last appearance here. Um, Again, I believe that you may have more of an impact on the game now than you did as a player, and I believe you're doing it the right way, sir. And I appreciate your efforts to expand the game and make it more fun, not only for the guys in the locker room, but for the fans as well. And I believe you've gotten some kudos from some teams for just how much of an impact you've made in things of that
um
nature.
um yeah, I guess I might ramble a little bit here, but I've done 400 episodes. I've done them for free. Any money I got from anybody that wanted to sponsor an episode, I put into coaching the kids, and I got them shirts made. I got them mini sticks made. Um, and yeah, like what the doors it's opened. It's changed my love of hockey. I get to see all my friends. I have a list of people I want to talk to, and I have no time to do it. And I'm busy in life as I've ever been, and I've never felt better because of all the fun that's being had. And then people call it a shed boost, and that's when I have a guy on, and then he feels better about himself because somebody actually told him about all of his accomplishments and how good he actually is. And then we just shoot the shit. And then all of a sudden they go out and, like, I call it run amok, and they dominate and they play better. And I always think, like, if somebody tells you how well you did, you're ready to do it more for them the next time, instead of the opposite. And it's like, um, so I got chocolate started in Manchester, England. They throw chocolate on the ice after every game. I started that with their captain. I asked if I thought they could do it. Um, when he came on, and then I said, "Let's see if it'll happen next game." And then the next game he goes out, he scores a goal, he gets in a fight, they beat one of the biggest budget teams in the league, and there's like one or two Kit Kats on the ice. And then the next game there was more. And then the next game there was more. And now all of a sudden they have volunteers that have to go out to pick up chocolate. When a game's ending, I see it on the ticker sometimes when I'm bored, and then all of a sudden, as soon as that game ends, I get videos from fans of the chocolate storm, and it's crazy. And I'll have guys on from their team, and they'll throw the chocolate they ask for with their name and number on it, and then those guys feel special, and then they want to play harder the next game because a fan threw them that. And I think it's really neat because that's what I think of hockey is you need to tell people when they do good. And if they're not doing good enough, just say, hey, man, you got to do this because this isn't good enough for us to win. And that's happened in Cardiff, Wales. That's where it started, the chocolate throwing. The goalie that went there, it just ended up Matt Caruth. He's been a huge part of what's gone on, him and Evan Mosey. But he started getting chocolate. He got Twix thrown on the ice after every win in Cardiff when he played there, and it snowballed and snowballed. And then I actually had on my under 11 boys and asked for Buenos for the boys. And I had a few weeks to milk it because of COVID. So I had on a bunch of fellas and kept asking for Buenos for the boys. And this was for my under 11 boys that are actually here in Ontario. And it happened. They win the next game. And there was a ton of Buenos and Twix on the ice. And I thought, wow, this is like, I can't believe I can do this from talking in my shed in my backyard. Um, and then I realized how much fun I've been having so much fun since the first episode that it's like I can't stop myself. I don't care if I make money. I just want to talk to my friends and see them have fun playing hockey.
Yeah, no, I definitely have enjoyed our time over here as well, and gotten to have conversations with guys that I never thought I would have conversations with. You one being you know, your podcast has been incredible. You're top 10 in a number of countries. Uh it's 400 episodes deep. It's a great podcast. Um I've gotten to talk to guys who have gone on to have great careers, like Ethan Frank. We had him on very early in our career as a show over here. Uh, we had a guy who ended up playing in the NHL and Sam Colangelo on before he came, like right before he came to Western after he announced his transfer over here. Um, from the fan side of things, like I'm just a big doofus who paints my face for hockey games and tries to have fun without being overly obnoxious. Um, and so don't really care if I get to talk to people, or like I'm not going out of my way to have conversations with the average fan, but or
Smile.
or even actually a thing that I don't think a lot of people realize is like I say very few words at games. Uh both
Your
to
face says it all.
Yeah, but like I'm a very reserved person, and like this is much easier for me to connect with people, or being face painted. Like I'll say hi to when people say hi, but like I'm a very reserved person, and so this has opened an opportunity. Like if you and I were in the same room and I had known that you had played for Western or whatever, I wouldn't even bother you. Like you came to Waldo's, I generally leave everybody alone. Like I'm just sitting at the door doing my job. In fact, funny story at the
But now when we see each other, we're gonna be like, "Hey, man," and
right,
it's like Witkowski. I'm like, "Whoa, I saw you with the Stanley Cup once. I saw you as a captain here," and then I would have been like, "Whoa," and then all of a sudden you shoot your shot and you get to know a guy and you connect with him, and then you meet him and you're like, "Hey, dude, we did that."
yeah. Actually, a funny story when I was at the regional for Western versus Michigan State. I was taking a picture for Waldo's because they sent me down with a Waldo's T-shirt to give to somebody, and the person I asked to take the picture for me was a Western player from years before. It was Kessel, Will Kessel. And after I'm walking back to my seat, and I was like, that dude totally played for Western. You're an idiot. You didn't even realize." And then I like walked back and I was like, "You played for Western, didn't you?" And I feel like a total schmuck for having asked you to take a picture for me, even though you were the only person standing right here. But he was like, "Yeah, no, I played for these years to these years." I'm like, "Yeah, I remember you now that you've said your name, and I remember your face behind the helmet now."
So what's neat for me is you saying that is similar to my hockey experience was I grew up in Elmira, Ontario playing with all my friends my whole life. I'm never on the radar really for the OHL. The last pick of the draft. Um, you go to Western Michigan and you earned that, and that was your goal. And then all of a sudden NHL teams are talking to you. And I never truly deep down believed that was realistic. I never truly deep down I could actually do it. Um, and when I look back on it, if I would have been more focused and knew I had a chance and knew like they were actually talking to me because they wanted to, and believed that I could actually do it, I think mental side of the game is huge and you have to believe you can do it. And last summer I reached out to Ryan O'Reilly about helping him on the ice because I knew he didn't have anybody to help him. And then me and him went out. We did a one-on-one skills thing for an hour and a half, and I just moved pucks for him, was there to help him. And then the next time he lets my son come out, and we do a practice on the ice for an hour and a half. And this is a Hall of Famer, a Stanley Cup champion. We walk into the arena. He's standing there with the Stanley Cup on the arena. And we get off the ice, and my son is, trying to figure this all out. And then O'Reilly walks in the shower and lets out a fart. And my son looked at me like, dude, he farts just like us. And I was like, do you get it now? You know?
Nice. Yeah.
And it was like such a cool moment because it was like, if I would have been around them more, because it's like, you're never around NHL players in small town Ontario. They're like this fantasy world. You see the Leafs on TV and you don't think it's real. But it's like, why can't you do it?
Right. And I mean, there's been times where like the thing
Why
about
can't you ask me to come on the podcast,
yeah.
right? And why can't you ask me to come back again? It's like, I haven't done one of my podcasts in a long time, but you asked me to do this, and I'm like, well, I'm going to do that for him. I'm not going to worry about mine. I'm going to do yours first.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I've come to. Anytime you don't ask, it's always no. But the second you ask, now it's 50-50. Like you've already upped your odds to being
You may as well shoot your
closer.
shot.
Yeah. And so like, yeah, there's been times where I've missed and definitely been told no or like, hey, like been completely ignored or whatever, and that's fine. But I've gotten a lot more yeses and gotten yeses from guys that I didn't expect to just because I took the shot and threw out the message and they were like, yeah, like that's I think a thing that anybody could come away from, like just ask the question. It opens the opportunity.
Well, I mean, I totally agree. And it's weird, you talked about asking for the first guy for a picture with him, and then you do it once, and then you're like, okay, I got confidence. It's like what I do in the real world now. It's like I've been doing it long enough that I have confidence in what I'm doing. But it's like doing the podcast is I will ask a GM of a team that I don't know. I will ask a coach. I will ask a ref. I will ask whoever I see I want to have on. And then all of a sudden, it's like, so I've talked to all these people and I'm not nervous anymore because I used to be nervous talking to dudes like that. And it's like, why was I nervous? They're just people too.
Yeah. And you already have something in common. Like you're not starting from completely zero, like we
Right.
both like hockey. We both went to Western Michigan. We both loved our time at Western Michigan. You know,
It's quite the school.
I am glad that that was one the only place I wanted to go to, and two that I got to spend as much time there as I did. In fact, I still live less than 5 minutes away from there because that's how much I enjoyed being there.
Did you know Maggie Stew's still a thing?
Yeah,
That's cool. It was in a whole different place, but like they still make it the exact same. We had it.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it
It
was.
took me right back, man. Being hungover, drink, eating Maggie stew.
Yeah, no, dude, that's one of the few things that hasn't changed at around. I mean, yeah, it's in a different spot, but like that and Lawson Ice Arena, like the two
I
constants.
can't believe they tried to sell me on this new barn and how they're gonna make it all fancy and it's gonna be the state of the art thing. And to me, I mean, if I'm just being honest, um, the Broncos always mucked her up. We didn't have the nicest place. We didn't have the best one in college hockey. Um, I know it's nice to have those things, but I always thought of us as kind of the underdogs that were doing it, and we were brothers. And I mean, it's going to be weird when they're in that big state of the art place that's it in downtown with however many Lawson lunatics. It's going to be a different vibe, but um, I mean, college hockey is a different vibe now too. With, um, I mean, living in the Burnhams and then just cruising down to Lawson for your game, and it's 2 minutes away, or you can walk,
Yeah,
um, if you're not as lazy as we were. But like it was the best setup ever, man, and I loved my 4 years there.
there's something about it that it just says gritty.
Uh-huh.
Like it's
And the new barn just didn't sound gritty to me. You
no.
know,
I mean,
they were
that's
it
none of
was
the seats are
all the
comfortable.
all the fancy pants stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah,
well, that's not who I am.
and not only does it scream gritty for the team itself, but like those students are standing on cement floors for 3 hours because the seats suck to sit on. Like the parents on the other side, right behind the players, they're all going home with stiff backs because those the
But and
bleacher
I like those
seating.
old barns. I would much rather them doll up Lawson than make a new one. Like deep down in my heart, that's what I wish. I
I'm
wish
with you.
I mean, it's not the same thing. It's on campus. They walk there. And if you go into one of those new cookie cutter barns like everybody else has, it just isn't the same feel.
Yeah. And like the thing too is like you look at Colorado College, their big thing was they wanted to be back on campus. They built a brand new facility on campus that they got to go to because they were playing off campus at a city rink or whatever it was. I'm not entirely sure who owned it or how it operated. Been there once, but they're playing better. They actually have a student section that where it's at, and it exists. Uh, their crowd seems to be bigger overall. The constant want for engagement seems to be focused like on trying to get things closer to campus and bringing in the average student body and not just the student athlete or the community
Okay,
itself.
I figured it out. I figured it out. Figured out why they're doing this. Ready?
Go for it.
Um, College hockey now, from what I understand, is each team has their budget to pay players to get them to go there. And Western Michigan is not at the top echelon. If you give half the tickets away to Lawson Lunatics, then you don't make as much money to pay players to play for you and be as good, but then it's not the same vibe. So, I think they're going to be trying to have the VIP spots in an arena. They're going to have the people paying for the year, and it's going to be a whole different thing than the gritty Broncos are right now. And I'm just speaking the truth, and I shouldn't say that because I just met everybody again and it was so much fun.
I mean, there's definitely gonna be a different feel for sure. I mean, I'm
But they'll be making way more money with the new barn. But I mean, I don't know. There was a lot of land around there when I was at Lawson last
so
time.
I don't know if this is like, I guess I don't understand enough of the inner workings. Like, Lawson is owned by,
Nobody does until you're in it.
yeah,
Until you know what's going on, you don't know.
but
I'm just spitballing here as a hockey guy.
oh no, but I mean, like, I have the same thoughts and opinion, some of the same opinions and feelings, but as of right now, like, Lawson is owned by the university. I don't know that they won't own the new arena. Like, the new arena is owned, I believe, by an outside company.
So then they're paying rent.
Like, and it's the men's hockey
And
team, the women's basketball team, and the men's basketball team are all supposed to be moving down there. So,
really,
yeah,
oh, so a lot of like that's quite a few big sports that were right on campus you could walk to.
yeah. So, like, that's one thing is I don't know who's
Is
running.
Western Michigan getting big time on me?
I mean, maybe.
Is that what's happening?
So, like, how much, what does that entail? There's also the possibility that they'll also share the space with the K Wings. So you'll
The
have,
Cape, really?
yeah. So you have four
So that
teams.
old barn's gonna be gone too. Do they still play in that old barn?
Yeah, they play in Wings Event Center just off of Sprinkle
That
right down the road.
I like that barn. I went to watch my assistant coach play. Chris Brooks was playing or coaching us, and he made a comeback for the playoffs because he hadn't scratched that itch enough to become a coach. And he came back for the playoffs, and we went and watched our coach play
That's
in the
awesome.
pro. It was awesome, and that's a sweet barn. I like the old barns. I wish they would just make Lawson bigger and get VIP rooms and make your money right there. Don't have to move it. Keep it right there.
Yeah. Um,
I'm done now. I'm going to move on from that.
no, you're good. Um,
I might not be allowed back to the golf tournament if I keep talking because they were all proud of it. They were showing all the slideshows, and I was
yeah.
like, oh, now First listens to this? No way he's coming to the shed.
To be honest, I doubt he does. We average like maybe 6 whole people. Um,
Hey, that's fine.
hey, no, that's perfectly fine. Some of them are
Dude,
some quality folks.
when I do my podcast, it's like I don't care who listens. I mean, the joy it brings me in my day and I don't care if you played in the NHL, if you're a 12-year-old from wherever. It's like if something happens that I am spurred on to have you on, it's like this is what we're doing. I don't care about your hockey career.
No, I mean, me and Mike were talking about the NCHC before we ever started doing this, and we just did this in a way of on the off chance getting an opportunity to talk to people that we wouldn't normally talk to, and that's the thrill I get, is I get to have conversations that I don't normally get to have, and a reason to lure people in, to say, hey, I have a podcast, will you be willing to come on it? And then they say yes, because they don't actually know what's happening. So
Hey, it's fun every time, right?
exactly. But we are at about an hour and a half, so I think I'm gonna end the show here. But
I
uh,
hope all 6 people liked it.
I hope so too. We'll find out in the next couple days. But again, when it hits that replay, but do the YouTubey things. There's a like, a subscribe. You can leave a mean comment if you feel like it. I'll read it and ignore it if it's too mean. And I might reply
Would
back if
you?
it's nice
I have a
enough.
hard time with that now.
Eh,
In the 400 episodes, I've had like 1 or 2 mean comments, and they both came from the same guy. And I was like, dude, if you don't like my guests and don't like my friends, don't listen.
exactly.
If you're gonna post something like that on social media because you didn't, and it's like, dude, that's not what this is about.
No, there's a billion other channels you could go hang out with. Go find something you enjoy. Quit wasting your time on something you don't. There's only so many
Exactly.
hours in the day. Why be miserable for a couple of them? Uh, but yeah, there's those things. This was the first episode back in a while, so hopefully we remembered how to do certain things. The scrolly stuff, there's stuff down there. Wally at ale_hockey on the Twitter. That's, I believe,
Is
is
that a
what it
thing?
is. I believe
I don't
so.
know. Could be.
Mine's on
Uh,
there under my picture. It's been there the whole time.
but what I would say is keep doing what you're doing, man. To be honest, when hockey players are done, and like I was for 5 years and was losing contact with a lot of dudes, it's like there's nothing wrong with asking a guy if he wants to come on a podcast and kind of remember who he was and what he's about, because that's how it all started for me. Was Cardiff Devils had me back for a Wally night, and when I came back here I felt like a failure and I hadn't done it. I hadn't done what I set out to do in my career. And then when I get back, invited back for that, it's like, so maybe I did do it,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, maybe I didn't suck that bad and I didn't not accomplish stuff. And then when I had went on a couple podcasts, and then I'm like, it all just came out of me. And I was like, oh my God, I have so much to talk about. And then I realized I could do that for all my friends. And I mean, sometimes the guys that are playing the game now, it's hard right now, and they need someone to remind them how good they are for a little bit, because it's hard being a professional for 10 years and there's a lot of ups and downs, and every once in a while you need someone to remind you, like, hey man, you're good. And then the guys that are retired that don't play anymore and they think people have forgotten about them and it's over, and then all of a sudden some guy wants to have you on a hockey podcast and you're like, whoa, I thought life was over like that.
Yeah. So,
So
uh,
keep her going, man.
well, I appreciate it. So here are some pictures that I've taken over the years. Enjoy them. Until the next episode, I'm out of here. Adios.